About a year ago, I did a video as part of my series on playing from a hymnal, where I showed you how to play What a Friend We Have in Jesus. We started with the melody and added the chords. It turned out to be a pretty simple song as far as the chords were concerned. We only used three chords: F, B flat, and C7. Now, using what we know about chord substitutions and the circle of fifths, I'm going to show you how to take this basic chord progression and make it sound richer and more interesting. Okay, you remember what this hymn looks like when you take it straight out of the hymnal. You can see that it's written in four-part harmony: soprano, alto, tenor, bass. We're only interested at this point in the melody. And so what we did was we simply played through the tune. So now, here's what it looks like when we strip away all the other parts. Now we just have the melody. And we played through that. Now, I'm not going to play the whole thing because you probably remember it. By the way, if you haven't seen the original video where I show you how to play this hymn using simple chords, I will put the link to that video in the description, and I encourage you to go back and take a look at that. What we're going to do here is now add more chords and make it sound even richer and more interesting. So we added the basic chords. We went from F to B flat, back to F, C7, F, B flat, F, C7, F. And we found that as we continued, we were just using two chords: B flat, F, C7, and then back to F, B flat, F, C7, F. Very simple, and actually it sounds pretty nice when you play it in this very simple manner. I also showed you some ways to make the left hand more interesting. Something like that. But now what we're going to do is, using our knowledge of chord substitutions and also employing the circle of fifths, we're going to add some more interesting chords to this. So take a look now at the first line. Notice it goes from F to B flat. So what is a chord that we could put in there that leads us from F to B flat? Well, the obvious chord would be F7. So it would sound like this. Now we go back to F. We could actually add, and so what we've done is we've jumped to this D minor 7 chord, which leads us to G minor 7, which we can play here in, this is actually third inversion. This would be G minor 7 in root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. We use third inversion because it leads us very smoothly from G minor 7 to C7. And so those first few measures would sound like this. Then we use a chord substitution here, and it also takes us around the circle of fifths. And we can do the same thing here. Now what we can do here, this will be very interesting. If we play this B flat chord in root position, we can actually go from B flat to B diminished. Kind of a dramatic sound there. And the reason we can do this is by going chromatically in the bass. We have B flat in the bass and then B in the bass, and this leads us to F over C. And then we can actually play B flat over C really quick. It's a very rich sound, and then back to C7, and then F. So what we have here is chromaticism. We've got a chord progression that the bass goes in a chromatic fashion. And then we're actually doing the 4-5-1 progression. Notice here we can actually go back to, instead of starting with C7, we can go to G minor 7. This is the minor 2 chord in the key of F, and so we have 2, 5, 1. So we have in the melody this G, which fits in the C7 chord, but would also fit in G minor 7. And so we're doing a circle of fifths kind of thing here. We're going from G, C, F. Now watch what we're going to do here. We could just go straight to F7, or we could go one step further in the circle of fifths, C minor. And that leads us to the B flat. And then just, instead of staying on F, we can go to F over C, and then, once again, we're going to jump out on the circle of fifths. We actually have two different things that we could do there. We could even do I have to learn how to talk and play at the same time. I'm not very good at that. We could actually go to G7 there instead of G minor 7. It's basically up to you. Which one do you like better? You could do it this way. Or now, my personal preference, I kind of like the G minor 7. However, if you decide to play G7, I will not quarrel with you or tell you that you're wrong. Coming back here to the end, notice what we can do here. Instead of, once again, going straight to F7, we can take a little bit of a leap on the circle of fifths. Whoops, I got to play this right. We go to C minor. We can also do this diminished chord again. Leads us to F over C. And then here we can just play G minor 7. We have the 2, 5, 1 progression. So you can see that there are times here where we substitute the minor 6 for the 1, and then we use the 2, 5, 1 progression. Let's play through it using these fancy chords. Here's what it'll sound like. Going to B flat, and then F. Now we use a substitution. Here's our 2, 5, 1 progression. We go to F7 again. And now we do a little chromatic bass run. So there we do the 4, 5, 1 progression. Now here, we go to G minor 7, C7, and then here we can throw in a C minor, B flat, F over C, D7. I'm going to use G minor 7, And then we'll throw that C minor chord in here again, leading to F7, leading to B flat. We'll use the chromatic bass thing. I love that dramatic diminished chord. F over C. Now we can play through it with perhaps a little more interesting left-hand accompaniment, something like this. Just basically outlining the chords now, spreading them out, voicing them in a widespread pattern. Instead of like this, might be a little bit of a stretch for your left hand. And by the way, it's not a bad idea to play through the left hand part on its own, just to give your hand an idea of what it's going to do. Okay, let's go back and I'll start again. Spread out that left hand chord. Nice thing about this diminished chord, it lies very easily under your fingers. Now I'd like to show you a very interesting way that you can modulate to another key to make this a really interesting arrangement. All right, we're coming up to the end. Okay, C minor, B flat. There's our diminished chord. Now watch what we can do here. Basically what we're doing now is a common note modulation. The F is common to, obviously, F major, but it can also be part of the D flat major chord. And so once we land on D flat, we can now play the whole song in D flat. Using the same type of chord substitutions and additional chords that we've put in here. There's our diminished chord. So now you've made this into a very interesting arrangement. In fact, what you can do is play it very simply. At first, play it through with just the basic chords. Then you can play it through again with these extra chords that we've added to make it even more rich sounding. And then when you get to the end, you can do a sudden modulation into the key of D flat. Ah, it's just beautiful. Now, what I'm going to do here is play for you an arrangement of this hymn, a very famous arrangement by a gentleman, get this, his name is Fred Bach, not Bach, like the famous composer, but Bach, B-O-C-K. I got this out of an old book that I've had in my library for many years. I'm playing it from memory. This is my approximation of it as best as I can remember it. I've been playing this for 50 years.